filming? Right, okay, let's get this done because this is a film series that... where have we gone? Why are we blocking this? This is a film series that I could talk for a long time about because there are a number of films here. I'm going to try and blitz through it. It's not just the number of films, it's the extra complication that some of these films are remakes, some of them are like alternative versions. And I'm going to try and sort out some of the misconceptions that a lot of people have about these films too. I think it's pretty best if I separate the remakes from this, and I will just cover the original films. Now, I haven't even told you I'm covering yet. You probably could have guessed from having seen that. It's the George Romero Dead films. That's just what I call the series. I don't know if there is an official name for these films, but there are 6 films. And they are all directed by George Romero. He's a filmmaker in a similar vein as John Carpenter and Wes Craven. Now, the first film was made back in 1967. That was Night of the Living Dead.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look! There comes one of them now.
There are a few different versions of this that I own. I'm going to try and blitz through it, like I said, because I could spend like 20 minutes talking about this. I'm going to try and trim it down. Now, I'm just going to be not reviewing the films, just the actual DVDs that are available. I don't own any of these on Blu-ray, so I can't comment about what's available, and these are only what's available in the UK, obviously, because that's where I live. Now, Night of the Living Dead was the first film. As I say, it was black and white back in 1967. Now, this box set is the trilogy of the Dead box set. This came out just before the 4th film in 2005, so that's why it calls it a trilogy at that point. You had Night of the Living Dead, which was 1967, Dawn of the Dead, which was 1978, I think, and Day of the Dead, which from memory was 1986. So it was 60s, 70s and 80s basically when these films came out. That's the way to kind of distinguish them. Now, Night of the Living Dead in this box set. Well, in fact, I'll show you what you get to start with anyway. Booklet, as you would expect. The artwork is taken from the poster of Dawn of the Dead, which was the 70s one. That's the second film in the series. The inside artwork is taken from one of the posters of Night of the Living Dead. That's the original 60s film. It's a 4-disc box set, so you get the 3 films, and you get an extra disc with extra features. There's a making of documentary. It's quite long from memory, and it uses footage that they filmed on location back in the 80s when making Day of the Dead. Now, they always make box sets really difficult to get into. This one's not too bad, to be honest. Now, the Night of the Living Dead film, the first film, the 60s one, that was in black and white, the version that you get in this was the 1997 re-release, which some film company, I don't know if it was officially endorsed or not, by the original filmmakers, George Romero. This production company went out and shot new scenes to be incorporated in this re-release. Similar fashion to what George Lucas was doing at the same time with the Star Wars trilogy. He re-released it in the cinemas with extra footage that had never been seen before. But this isn't a director's cut because it wasn't original footage. They reshot these scenes, and you can kind of tell in the quality difference. Even though it's black and white, they keep it in black and white, but you can tell that there is a quality difference. It's worth a watch. I can see where they were going with it. The stuff that they added into it. It kind of fleshed out, like I said, the background to the main zombie that you see. That was this guy. If you've seen the film, you recognise him. He's the first zombie that you see. And they got this. I think it was the same actor actually. It might have just been a different actor. I seem to remember hearing it was the same actor. They kind of did him up to look like the zombie from the original version, and they talked about who he was and that he was being buried at the time when the zombie apocalypse starts. It's worth a watch. They changed some of the score as well, the music score to the film, which is fairly noticeable if you've seen the film enough times. But I wanted to own the actual original version, so I also opted for this, Night of the Living Dead. It's just the one film. You get a lot of extras with it. It's one disc and you get it in a metal box. So it's quite a nice thing to have as well. It's been digitally remastered and stuff, as you would expect nowadays with an old film like that. So also in the box set you get Dawn of the Dead, the original, not the original, well the 70s version.
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead is my favourite. That's the one where it's set in the mall, as they call them in America. And there is another version of this. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the difference between these, if you're thinking of buying these, let me just break this down. The Dawn of the Dead version that you get in this box set is in 4.3 aspect ratio. That is a square picture. So it's for old TVs, basically, back in the 90s, if you remember those TVs, as I'm sure many of you will. It's you get the longest version of the film in this. It is 139 minutes long, so it's about 2 hours 19 minutes. There are bits in this, however, that are cut out. Even if it's a longer version, there are bits that are cut out that are in this shorter version, which this is 127 minutes. It's 2 hours and 7 minutes long. So it's quite a difference. This one is in widescreen, whereas, like I said, this one isn't. This one has bits cut out of it that are in this, and this has bits cut out of it that are in this. So there's no definitive version to watch, and I've probably lost you at this point. But I own both for that reason. Similar to the reason I own both Night of the Living Dead that comes with this, and Night of the Living Dead that comes with this. I own a different version of Dawn of the Dead as well. I think a lot of it's to do with censors and stuff like that, but it's just unfortunate that everything isn't put into one definitive version, unfortunately. So, but it is a really good film. This, to me, is the definitive zombie film. It is, like I say, it is a very good one, and I think a lot of other people would agree with that. Anyway, moving on. The third film in the series was the 80s one, 1986, I think it was, Day of the Dead. Which I liked as well. But there's only one cut of that I'm aware, so that's quite easy to review, that one. The fourth film in the series was Land of the Dead. It didn't come out until 20 years after the 80s one, Day of the Dead. It came out in 2005, Land of the Dead. I got it in a box set with Shaun of the Dead. The reason they released these two together was because they were both released by Universal. And George Romero was a big fan of Shaun of the Dead, which you're probably aware it's a British comedy. It kind of pays homage to the genre, particularly these films.
Take Carl, go to Mum's, kill Phil, sorry, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
George Romero was a big fan of this, so much so when he made Land of the Dead a year after Shaun of the Dead, it includes, as a zombie in the film and on the poster, which you can see here on the cover, Edgar Wright. That's the guy who directed Shaun of the Dead. He also did Hot Fuzz and a few others, and Simon Pegg there as well. They appear in the film. There is a scene with them, which I might, if I've got time, I might edit into this review. If not, well, you'll know because I'll put it on now. Fifth film in the series is Diary of the Dead. This came out in 2008.
The Diary of Cruelty.
Come on, before we get our asses shot off.
It was released in the cinema. I went to see it at the cinema. It's not terrible, but it's not all that great. It's done in the similar style as Blair Witch Project, that kind of thing. It's the same year that Cloverfield came out, so I think they were trying to cash in on some of the momentum, popularity of these. 2013, it's 5 years after Cloverfield. They're still making these fan footage films. Some of them are good, some of them aren't, but this is one that I would say isn't all that great. I mean, they were making these films before that as well, like Blair Witch, but I think it really kind of started up again in 2008. that was the 5th film. The next film, the last film in the series, Survival of the Dead. Don't really have much to say about it. It was straight to video. It wasn't very good. There's a character in this that was introduced in Diary of the Dead, which is this guy, the main guy. All these other films aren't really connected, other than it's a zombie apocalypse. They don't have like characters. They are direct sequels as such. Well, they are sequels, but they don't follow on. They're all independent stories. But yeah, Survival of the Dead isn't all that great. If you want to watch all the films, by all means watch it. But otherwise, you can. I wouldn't lose any sleep over not having seen it. Other versions that we've got of these films. Night of the Living Dead, that was a 60s one. I probably should have reviewed this at the beginning as well. This is the 60s film. This is the original version of the 60s film. The only difference on this is that it's been colorized.
Stop it. You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
It's interesting to see. Give it a watch if you've seen the other one. Now, Remakes. Night of the Living Dead remake. This was made in 1990 and produced by George Romero. So it is kind of it adds a little bit of legitimacy to it. That's why I included it. And it's not a bad film as well.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It's quite a good remake. It's fairly close to the original. So that was the remake of the first film. So this came out in 1990. Dawn of the Dead remake. This came out in, was it 2003 or 2004? I can't remember. It doesn't say on the back as far as I can see. It had fast-moving zombies, which I'm not a big fan of. Sometimes it's done well. This one, like I say, I can't say anything bad about it, but I think it's fairly bland. Plus, I compare this to the original Dawn of the Dead, which was definitive, so I don't know, that's probably why I didn't like it as much. That's pretty much it for those films. The only thing I'm going to add to the end of this is Return of the Living Dead. Now, this is a film that, similar to Shaun of the Dead, it's kind of a comedy spoof. It's not as comedic as Shaun of the Dead.
Send more cops.
It worked in the movie! Well, it ain't working now. Bring the movie line!
It was made in the 80s. A lot of people think this is connected, that it's one of the series, but it isn't. It has a similar title, but it is not connected to the other films. It pays homage to the films. It even mentions the film, the original Night of the Living Dead, in the film itself, that kind of reference it.
You see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
It's a good film, don't get me wrong. It's worth a watch. I haven't seen the others. I understand 2 is quite good. Then from 3 to 5, I think there are 5 of these. It kind of goes downhill dramatically, from what I understand. But I would add that to my collection anyway. Well, obviously I have. So those are the films. It's October now as I review this. If you're watching this in October, I would recommend getting these films watched for Halloween because they are very good. Some of them are pretty scary and creepy and a bit gory as well. So if you like that kind of thing, get them watched. End of the review. I hope it's been of use to you. Thank you very much.